very unique, and we're all very individual people. There's actually no one in the world that's exactly like you. And we live in a society and a culture that celebrates that individuality and appreciates that individuality. Now, these differences aren't just found in how we express ourselves. They're actually found in the core of who we are. They're found in our DNA. We're told that no two humans ever have or ever will have the same genetic makeup. So because we're so incredibly different, you'd assume that this individuality is also reflected in our DNA. But just how unique are we? Now, a geneticist named Dr. Craig Venter wanted to establish exactly that. How much of our DNA is unique and how much of it is the same as everyone else? And their studies concluded that our DNA is not 100% unique. We're actually not 50% unique. We're not even 1% unique. Our DNA is actually only 0.057% unique. Now, to give you an idea of what that is, just for this talk, I'm going to round it up to 0.06, but to give you an idea of what that means, it means that your individuality and what makes you you is found in such a minute percentage of who you are. That means that these two guys are 99.94% the same. That means that these two guys are also 99.94% the same. This next one's always a hit. That means that these two guys here are 99.94% the same person. And the only thing that separates them is just 0.06%. It's crazy, right? It's a challenging thought, and it's one that I'm challenged by every single day. And I was actually especially challenged when I was in LA about a week ago, walking down Venice Beach, thinking to myself, there's no way I'm just 0.06% different to this guy. It is a guy. It's a guy. But it's a challenging thought, and it's one that's a lot easier to understand within a business context. So if we take two brands that operate within the same field or the same product, like, say, Apple and Samsung, for the sake of this, I'm just going to be talking about their phones. The phones have to deal with the same things, the same factors. They have to deal with screen size and screen resolution and the battery quality and the memory and the RAM. And in fact, looking at their specs, they're very, very similar products. If we were to put nothing but their specs on the screen, it would be very hard for people to differentiate which spec is owned by which product. I'd personally struggle with that. I'd actually go as far as saying that these two products here are 99.94% the same product. But if that's the case, then why is it almost impossible to find someone who's indifferent about which product they use? Why is it almost impossible to find someone who doesn't have a fierce loyalty and this, deep-seated conviction of the inferiority of the other product? Where does that come from? I don't think it comes from the stats. I've never met somebody who says, I use this product over this one because it has an extra gigabyte of RAM, or because I can fit more photos on it, or I have 0.2% bigger screen. I've never heard that. And so if it's not found in the 99.94%, then it must be found in the 0.06%. So what is that? What creates this loyalty? As a brand strategist, I have the opportunity to talk to a lot of people about their brands. And we ask the same sort of questions around what makes them different or why people only do business with them and not their competitors. Ultimately, we're trying to identify what is their point of difference, what makes them unique. And we get the same sort of expected answers. We get, our accounting firm has exceptional customer service, and we're brilliant accountants. We really stand behind our work. And we stay ahead of legislative changes to ensure that our clients receive the best taxation outcomes, which sounds great, and it looks great on a brochure, but none of those things are remotely unique to them. I mean, take my accountant into consideration. If they didn't have good customer service or respond to emails and phone calls, he wouldn't be my accountant. If he didn't stand behind his work and he wasn't good at what he does, he wouldn't be my accountant. If he didn't stay ahead of legislative changes to ensure that we have the best, well, you understand where I'm going. So those things aren't unique to them. It's actually what allows them to be in business. It's kind of like a bare minimum expectation. Similar to asking somebody why they fly with a certain airline and having their response be, because I get to the right destination every time. I don't know who you fly with, bro, but that's pretty basic. I've never booked a flight to Sydney and ended up in Lithuania, personally. But hey, it seems like I've got a really good run. But If those things aren't unique to their business, then what is it? Why are people loyal to them? Now, to try to understand that, we'll ask the same person to name some brands that they're loyal to or brands that they love. And we get answers like, when I'm signing a big deal, I use this kind of pen, or I fly using this airline, or I'll only ever drive a BMW. And so we'll give them a pen and paper, and we'll ask them to write down every single reason why they'll only ever drive a BMW. And it's not hard for them to fill up that page. Sometimes we even flip the page. Yes, we're too cheap to give them a second page. Low cost, high profit, you wouldn't get it. But they talk about the safety and the features and the acceleration and the user experience, and they talk about the safety department. They talk about they go through every single aspect as to why they feel they're loyal to that brand. And it's for us to then go through and evaluate every single one. And we say, okay, you've talked about safety. Would you say that it's the safest car on the market? They think about it and they say, probably not. We cross that out. We say, okay, you've talked about features and technology. Would you say that it's the most technologically advanced car out there right now? They think about that as well, and they say, actually, no, I probably wouldn't say so, and we cross it out. All right, well, I'm not going to ask you if it's the best performing car in the market, because there's some pretty ridiculous cars out there. Would you say it's the best performing car within your price bracket? And again, they think about it and say no, and slowly but surely we cross out every single item. And we'll generally get a bit of pushback, like, no, it's none of those things individually, it's all of those things collectively, it's all of those things into one package, which makes sense and it's valid. But it leads us to our next question, and that is, well, if Mercedes was to release a car that was safer and more fuel economic and had more features and had better acceleration and outweighed the BMW in every way, and it was cheaper, would you switch? And 9 times out of 10, the answer is no. I don't understand that. It's kind of similar to Samsung releasing a phone that outweighs Apple in every single way, but Apple users still aren't switching. What creates this loyalty? It's not in the comparison. It's not in 18-inch alloys versus 19-inch alloys, or 3 gigabytes of RAM versus 4 gigabytes of RAM. So it must be in the 0.06%. And so we go back to this accountant and we ask him a question like, we just need to understand this. So you're happy to drive an inferior product, knowing that it gets outweighed in every way, and pay more for it. For what reason? And when they're disarmed with all of their benefits and features, we get the same 4 words. But this loyalty spans across so many different brands. And even just putting some brands on screen, some people will lean with one over the other, and they'll be die-hard loyal to one over the other. And the products are actually incredibly similar. The ingredients are actually incredibly similar. In fact, some of these products use the same factories and manufacturers. So where does this loyalty come from? And again, going back to this accountant, asking him, why are you happy to drive an inferior product and pay more for it? Why BMW? And we get the same 4 words, and it doesn't matter who we're speaking to or what brand they're speaking about, the response is the same, and that's this. They just get me. They just understand me. They feel understood. How? How does a German manufacturer make the owner of a small accounting firm in Australia feel understood? They don't know who he is. They don't know what he looks like. They don't know where he's driving to and from. They don't know anything about him. But not only do they make him feel understood, they make him feel understood to the point where he will never do business with somebody else. What's that coming from? Now, we've established it's not in the 99.94%. It's not in the comparison. So it must be in the 0.06%. And the 0.06% must be exactly that. It must be a brand's ability to make you feel understood, to make you feel aligned to them, to make you feel as though that their product or service was created by someone exactly like you, for someone that's exactly like you. Now, to evaluate that alignment, I want to talk about how we select our friends. It's not this overly conscious process. We don't have rose ceremonies and friend application forms and auditions, even though it's actually not a bad idea. Most of our friendships don't make sense on paper. They may not be the funniest people we've ever met. I've got some friends in the room, so please don't be offended by this. You know, they may not like the same movies and music as us. They may not be the most available or accessible people. On paper, they don't really outrank everybody that you've met, but one thing that's a recurring pattern is that we can all agree that our friends are different to anyone that we've ever met. Our closest friends are different to anybody that we've ever met, and that's why you're friends with them. What makes them unique, or their 0.06%, and what makes you unique, your 0.06%, align. And through that alignment, we call it a friendship. Because you feel understood by them. You feel as though that you can be yourself around them. Have you ever heard that term or that statement, we just click? That's exactly what's happening. You just click with them, just like you click with these brands, because they're different and you're different. And they make you feel understood. And through that, you feel as though that you could be more yourself. So it's actually not in a company's ability to have great customer service or have the best locations or how fast they deliver a product or service. It's in their ability to make you feel understood. But that's why I drive past 5 cafes that do better coffee to get to my local. I feel understood there. I don't know what it is. It might be that their music playlist is very similar to mine. It might be that I can find a park really easily and go in. It might be that they know my name. It might be that they're not pretentious about coffee. It might be all those things. I don't know. But I know that what makes them different and what makes me different are aligned. And it's going to take more than just better coffee for me to sway that loyalty. Just like it'll take more than somebody being funnier or more available for me to switch my loyalty. Just like it'll take more than an extra 4 airbags or an extra inch in alloy wheels for me to switch my loyalty. Just like it'll take more than an extra gigabyte or a headphone jack to switch my loyalty. Because it's not in the specs. It's in their ability to make you feel understood. A brand's relevance is in how well they can align their message and their brand to the objectives of their target market. This alignment is what leads to loyalty. This alignment is what leads to obsession. This alignment is what leads to an ignorance of everything else that's in the market. And sometimes all it takes is for a brand to just have the same ethics and values as you. And I want to finish with a case study. It's a case study of 2 brands that we would be very familiar with. Woolworths and Coles. 2 major supermarkets in Australia. It's already divided the room, I can tell. But Woolworths always had the slogan, the fresh food people, but they never really leveraged it. They're very much how much they could save you and the dollar dazzlers, and you know, their catalogs were completely focused around how much you save. And then Coles came out with arguably the most annoying campaign in history. Down, down, prices are down. They had the foam fingers. They had the annoying people that were over-enthusiastic about saving 50 cents. You know, they had how much you save at the bottom of the receipt. And it was pretty awkward for Woolworths. They're like, that's sort of our market. And so what was their response? They could have done one of 3 things. They could have completely ignored it and buried their head in the sand and, you know, pretended it never happened and sing a song. They could have, you know, spent more money advertising the exact same thing. Or they could have said, you know what, we want to deliver a more relevant message if there is one. And they decided to run with option 3, and they went to a branding team, and they said, we want to deliver a message that's relevant to what Australians want. And the branding team said, we'd love to help with that. What's that message? And Woolworths said, you're the branding team, figure it out. Don't you love clients? But so they went out to 60 shopping centres, different socioeconomic areas, completely different areas around Australia, but they asked the same question. Would you prefer a fresher product or a cheaper price? And when they collated all the information, they're pretty surprised to see that 86% of Australians wanted a fresher product over a cheaper price. And so what that meant is that Coles, Aldi, that all of these competitors were fighting for 14% of the market, and 86% was an open highway. Now, this was too big of an opportunity for them to miss out on. And they said, we need to communicate that, and we need to communicate that in everything we do. So what did they do? They rebranded. They changed their logo to be 2 fresh, crisp green apples. They really leveraged the fresh food people. They changed the types of products that they used in their advertising to look almost photoshopped. You know, hashtag all fruit matters. You know, they changed their fit outs to look fresh and vibrant and exciting. You know, their fruit is on pallets as though it had just been delivered from supermarkets. they started communicating they were obsessed with fresh products. Now, in doing so, what they said is this: hi, we're Woolworths. We don't know who you are, but we're obsessed with fresh products. Wait, what? You too? What are the odds? Who are you doing business with? Don't worry about those guys. You should do business with us. We understand you. And people did. In fact, after they launched the brand for just 6 months, they became recognized within the top 15 retailers internationally. I'm not talking about supermarkets, I'm talking about retailers. That includes your Costco's and your Walmarts and these heavy hitters. In fact, they became recognized as the most successful supermarket franchise in history in regards to their growth. That's incredible, but this is the most incredible thing about that. They didn't touch their 99.94%. They didn't change the locations of their supermarkets. They didn't change their customer service. They didn't change the products they stock. They didn't change the cost of those products or the pricing point whatsoever. All they changed was how they communicate. And through doing so, people felt understood and jumped on that. So why are you loyal to the brands that you're loyal to? Because they're different, and so are you. Because they get you and they make you feel understood. And through doing so, they make you feel more like yourself and they make you feel like a friend. So whether you're trying to understand brand loyalty or achieve it, the most important thing that you need to remember is this: what's your 0.06% and who resonates with that? That's the difference. Thank you.